Sports with a Big Orange Vols preview show. Jonathan Crompton, former Vols quarterback, alongside me, Austin Stanley of A to Z Sports. We're going to talk several topics today, Crompton, as we get ready for the Vols regular season finale against Texas A&M. This game postponed a few times because of COVID issues with A&M, but will finally take place noon Eastern time in Knoxville. Number 5, Texas A&M coming into Knoxville, trying to vie for a backdoor spot in the college football playoff. So we'll discuss a creative spread that I have placed on this game that involves Jeremy Pruitt and his job security. But we'll talk about 2 ways Jeremy Pruitt can guarantee him being back for 2021. We'll touch some on what yesterday was with National Signing Day, with the early signing period, and then ask you guys an interesting question too. What's the biggest positive in the Vols keeping Jeremy Pruitt on as head coach? So a lot of really good discussions here on the show today on the Big Orange Preview Show. But first, let me thank our sponsors real quick. That is BioPure Music City. I talked about it this morning on our morning show. Crump, they get a brand new product out that is BioPure Shield hand sanitizer that is legit. It's a protectant and a hand sanitizer, so it's not something you just have to use every 20 minutes. You use it once, and you get hours of protection. More information on their brand new BioPure Shield hand sanitizer at biopureservice.com, and also Ashbusters Chimney Service, your chimney experts for sweeping, inspections, masonry, and more at ashbusters.net and ashbustersknoxville.com. Crompton, we were just talking right before we went live that you were listening to the Jeremy Pruitt press conference from this week, and you were saying, "I'll just stop. We'll talk about it on the show." So I will let you go with your flow of consciousness of what you were thinking about Jeremy Pruitt.
Well, first, I kind of side note off of that, trying to figure out why every coach, doesn't matter the record of the opposing team, is like the best team they've ever played, right? You could be 130th out of 130th, and they're going to say, hey, their defense is amazing, their offense. I'm like, all right, guys, like we all understand that you're just giving politically correct answers. Just answer the question, right? Yeah. All right, so that's a side note. But I thought it was a little interesting that, and I want to give him the benefit of the doubt here, because I know we've said all year the quarterback play, all this stuff. I understand why we started the season where we did at the quarterback position, because how our last year ended, being the senior, all this. Mm-hmm. But what he said this week, it kind of sparked something in me. I liked it. I wish we would have got it earlier in the year, though, where he said both these guys are going to play. JT was a kind of game time decision against Florida because he hurt his shoulder, but he played well. Outside of one throw last week, he played well. Both guys are playing really good football, and both guys are going to play because we need to find out where we are going forward. And I'm sitting there going, it took you 9 games to say that.
Yeah.
We've all been saying that because I know that we saw the one pass against Kentucky, but we can't judge a player off of one play. And I'm kind of excited to have both of those 2 guys, because you got one that's just a gunslinger and he knows he's got a rock of an arm. And you got another guy that's a really good, and I'm not using this in a bad way, of a game manager, meaning he can make plays and he deceptively can move a little bit, So I'm excited about both of them. I just wish we would have heard this from him earlier in the year, before the year was quote unquote lost. That's kind of what got me going, especially earlier today when I was listening to it. It just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and it just seems like everything about this year has been because of the lack of ability to manage the quarterback position. Because I also saw a comment, and I think it was after the Florida game when Garantano did not play. There was a question to Jeremy Pruitt that asked, why didn't Jared Garantano play, or was he available to play today? And the question was, no, he hasn't practiced in 13 days. Yeah. And then he asked, and then he also said that, well, there's a bunch of guys who played today who didn't practice in 13 days. And so it's confusing on, he always says it depends on who practices best, but it also is confusing because he doesn't follow the same rules when it comes to the quarterback that he does the other players. It seems like he treats a quarterback like he does the left corner, which is not how it needs to be happened, is that it's all over the place. And that's where I feel like the offense has been unable to get in any type of rhythm at all this season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree at all, because we for sure have not gotten into a rhythm. Maybe once at the end of the year, but I mean, earlier in the season, the first 2.5 games, we played pretty decent. As soon as that halftime hit, it was like a nuclear bomb went off with our offensive production. But like I said, I am encouraged to at least have heard him say that. Just sucks that it was week 10 or game 10, I'll say, that he said it. So, I mean, then again, is that going to lead into the next conversation that we're going to talk about guaranteeing another year?
Yeah.
Possibly could be, PC talk, as you want to, what I mean? It just, I don't know, but I'm at least excited about what we have for the future. I just wish we would have done this earlier and understand that just because you're a quarterback or just because you're a kicker or whatever, every position obviously has its own ins and outs, but everybody should have the same regiment when it comes to, are they going to play or are they not going to play? You know what I mean? If they didn't practice or they did practice. So I do agree with what you said on that.
Yeah, Dom says a question. What do you guys think about fans firing back at other fans for voicing their displeasures and saying there's no support? I've been called a whiner so many times this year. Is the new standard being a loser? I don't get this fan base anymore. And Dom, dude, I'm with you because, weekly, Crompton and I do this show, and Jonathan Crompton has played starting quarterback of the SEC for this university that we're discussing here. And so many comments that I'll read about how we need to shut up. We have no idea what we're talking about. We need to let the coaches coach. And I agree with Dom. And that's just my thinking. Obviously, I talk about sports for a living. But I think fans, part of being a fan is holding your team accountable to the standard that you think it should be at. And I get that you don't want to be unreasonable, and there are unreasonable people out there, but for the most part, Tennessee fans who are upset at Jeremy Pruitt for how this season has played out deserve to be able to voice their displeasure, especially in college sports, because so many of the fans help fund what's actually happening when it comes to donations to the university.
No, exactly. And I guess I could speak firsthand on people saying stuff, but at the end of the day, you can have fun with it. That's a part of being a fan, but you cannot be disrespectful in it, in my opinion. You have to understand that you can have passion, you can have, loyalty, but you don't have to make it personal to have your team's back. Yes, every team should hold their players and their I'm calling it organization, but their university to a higher standard and want them to win a national championship every year. That's the beauty of being a fan. And I get to be in that now, right? So it's fun, but there's a right and a wrong way of being able to do it and not, personally try to attack somebody. Because at the end of the day, if you don't know that individual, you don't know anything going on around them or inside of their head or anything. So you can poke and have fun, but we do got to have a little more, I'm going to call class. And I'm just saying for everybody, that's everybody when it comes to stuff like that, because there obviously are people that are going to try to take it too far all the time. So to the person that commented that and asked about that, you know what, just brush it off. Understand that at the end of the day, if they were sitting in front of you, person to person, they probably wouldn't say it because they're hiding behind a computer.
Yeah, no, absolutely correct on that last part there. And I always respond to the people who think A to Z Sports is just Vol haters, even though I went to the University of Tennessee. You played at the University of Tennessee. No, you just don't like or agree with what we're saying because Tennessee's not winning. If Tennessee was winning games, we would talk about how good they were. And
how awesome everything is.
And we were at halftime of the Georgia game. and then guess what?
How confident I was at halftime of the Georgia
game?
Oh,
my gosh.
I can't remember what my confidence level pick was. And if somebody really wants to go back and find it, I would love to know. I'm curious because I don't remember. Yeah. But I'm pretty sure it was at least above a 5 or 6.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, we got this. We're going to make this upset. And, see, Rob came back with an 8. It probably was an 8.
It was, close, it was probably close to that.
It went downhill quick. It did.
So, all right. So let's talk about this because Kaysen says, I mean, I'm not happy with it. No, but to say he deserves to get fired, I think is too much. And he adds on and says, after next year, if he does the same thing, yeah, I think it's time to go. But this has been a really weird year. It has been a weird year.
It has been.
But you also have to recognize certain clues where you see something from a coach and you know that is a sign that this coach is not the long-term answer. And I think you can look back, and Butch Jones took too long for the university to recognize those signs. Derek Dooley, they recognized it appropriately, I think.
Yeah.
And they made the appropriate time and move on. I think Philip Fulmer, he got 17 years. He got out of a bad stretch in the early 2000s, won the East in 07, and then it went down again. So they decided to move on from that. And Parker's right. Tennessee is not the only team dealing with COVID.
No.
And you've got other programs in the conference with first-year coaches who are doing so much better than what Tennessee has done with COVID. And this is not about Jeremy Pruitt. I think Jeremy Pruitt's a good football coach. I don't think he's a head coach at this time in his life or his career.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and Tennessee cannot afford to continue to move forward with a guy who is learning on the job. And that's what Tennessee is, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I said it the day South Carolina fired Muschamp. If South Carolina can financially do it, so can we. And now if Auburn can do it, so can we. And I'm not calling for him to be fired. I'm just saying I know the money that's around that university, as do a lot of people, especially the boosters. And that's all I've ever said is just, do I think he's the right man for the job at this exact time? No. Am I saying he's a bad human being? No. But you're in a high-profile position making millions of dollars. We're allowed to come out and say, hey, we don't think you're doing a good enough job for what we hold this university to. Auburn just gave Malzahn an extension and then fired him. They obviously are holding to a higher standard. And yes, I see Muschamp was in year 5, Gus was in year 8, but it still doesn't matter. Go back and look at their third-year records. You know what I mean? Obviously, Malzahn went to the national championship in year 1 or 2, but he inherited a really good team, you know, that he was actually coaching with at the time. So those are the things that I say is there's nothing wrong with being a college head coach versus NFL head coach. There's nothing wrong with being a college OC or DC versus a head coach. You're going to make life-changing money at either position. And much as I've said that I think Sarkisian will go somewhere, they're going to have to pay him. Dude, he's making 2.5. Why would he leave? The more that I think about it, somebody's going to have to, it's going to have to be the perfect job. He's making a couple $1 million to call plays, and he's not even the head coach. So that's the stuff that I look at, that where I don't think that we're wrong in saying that we are holding our university to a higher standard, because the money that is being spent on these people.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, so here's a question I want to ask you guys, and I'm going to get to the lead topic of the show and talk about 2 ways Pruitt can guarantee 2021 for himself. But I want you guys to answer the question, what's the biggest positive in the Vols keeping Jeremy Pruitt as head coach? So be thinking of that. What's the positive of keeping Pruitt around for year 4? But first, let me tell you again about BioPure Music City and what they're doing. Protect your crew from the flu with BioPure Music City, biopureservice.com, and also their phone number right there on the screen, 615-635-0555. They have a brand new product out, and it is their new hand sanitizer. It's called Shield Sanitizer. So it's the BioPure Shield hand sanitizer. It's a water-based residual hand sanitizer and protectant. So instead of just squirting it on your hands, rubbing it in, then it goes away, and then it stops working 20 minutes later, this hand sanitizer at biopureservice.com lasts for hours. So it's great for if you have kids, if you work around kids, if you work in an office. BioPure Music City's new hand sanitizer at biopureservice.com. The Shield hand sanitizer is brand new on the market. It just came out last week. So check that out while you can, biopureservice.com. So here live on this Vols preview show, Crompton, I'll let you start. What is the biggest positive to keeping Jeremy Pruitt? I'm not saying you agree with it, but overall, big picture, what's that positive?
Well, I'm going to go back real quick before I say that, and I like this comment by Cole. It's time for, and I'm included in this because I'm a fan. It's time for the fans to be part of the solution, not the problem. Fans can have the power of positivity and attract top-tier talent. So, I mean, that's – I like that. That's where – and not just us, but that's where I think we need to go as a kind of a society. I understand we can all be upset. I'm as guilty as anybody with that. But so on to my positives, I think the defense can get better in the sense of having another year in a system, because our defense has actually played pretty decent. We've lost double-digit games or double-digit point games because we haven't scored points, right? So the defense, I think that's one of the biggest positives. And then just showing the recruits and their families that, yes, times are tough, but we are going to be willing to ride this out. So if you like our staff and you like the stability, because, dude, that's one of the biggest things back in the day that attracted recruits to Tennessee was stability. We don't have stability. You know what I mean? So I know I'm kind of speaking out of both sides of my mouth.
Yeah. Well, I'm asking you a hard question.
but what I'm saying is that's what I'm saying if I'm in that position, that's how I'm going to present it. But me personally, we all know what my personal opinion is. And but I can at least understand that is the positive side of it, is our defense should get better. We're going to get more guys around toe, let him roam around a little more, and then show the recruits, hey, come play here. We're going to let our guys be here. We're going to go through hard times, but we're going to get through it. And hopefully that does happen.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm going to read some comments. Anthony says the positive would be getting a new offensive coordinator. Then Joshua says, I'm good with Pruitt staying if he makes changes to his staff. That's the only reason to keep him for year 4. Let's see. Phillips just saying the slant, Crompton, the stop of the slant.
The slant. You know what? That's what we're going on the road recruiting. Guys, we're going to teach how to stop the slant.
I swear.
We got this.
Yes. Philip also adds, there's no positive to keeping Pruitt. Just going to continue to tank the program. Maybe Fulmer needs to be shook up and he needs to be told to go. Wilkes says, I can't think of a reason to keep him. Throw however much money you can at Freeze and make him say no. Dom says, there's literally no positive. I hate calling for people's job, but he has shown that he does not adapt well to change, which is a great point because that's why the Vols have been so god-awful in the third quarter of every game.
Third quarter. Oh, dude, because if I'm an opposing coach, and especially this week against Jimbo, he's really good at this stuff. You're going to save your quote-unquote bag of tricks for the third quarter. You're going to run your normal stuff, first half, all this, getting them to feel good about themselves, stay close, and then anybody that does not do really good halftime adjustments, the third quarter, your first couple drives, you're throwing the kitchen sink at them, and you're trying to just go ahead and ruin their confidence. Mm-hmm. And if you notice, that's kind of what's happened to us on both sides of the ball. Right? Defensively, or our offense, so, defensive game plan, they came out and they changed things up in the third quarter against us, giving us some different blitzes, giving us some different fronts, some different rotations by the safeties and the linebackers. And that is the hard part for us. And that's where on the other side of my mouth, I think I've been pretty vocal about that side. So I'm not going to get into it, but that is concerning. I won't lie.
So Carson brings up a good positive, and that's kind of what I was going to get to. He says the mentality that he brings to the program compared to the Jones era, from what I understand from a current player, he runs a program like Bama, like Saban. He brings stability like you've already discussed. And I think the mentality of they have recruited, and this is me, I know somebody who worked closely with the Butch Jones era and staff. They Butch Jones recruited guys who did not love football as much as they loved recruiting. They loved the orange carpet. They loved the Twitter followers. They loved going in the locker room and putting on the jerseys and taking pictures with the gloves in their hand. They loved recruiting. They didn't love practice on Wednesday afternoon. I think Jeremy Pruitt has recruited guys who love football because Jeremy Pruitt loves football, and I don't think Jeremy Pruitt has any patience with anybody who doesn't love football. And so I think I do. I think that's a positive. And I also think it's a positive is I truly think the roster likes Jeremy Pruitt. I think they fight hard for him. They work hard for him until the quarterback ruins the game in the third or fourth quarter, and then it unravels. So my biggest positive is that they fight hard and they like the coach. So the two ways Jeremy Pruitt can guarantee a fourth year The first one, he started yesterday. I know they've had recruits jump off the ship over the last couple of weeks.
Every team's going to have that, though.
Right.
Every team.
And I know that happened. But as yesterday started, everybody who was supposed to sign early with Tennessee signed early with Tennessee. And that was a start. He has to finish strong with this recruiting class. And the second way, Crompton, is on Saturday. I think they have to play A&M really competitively.
Well, they do. Well, I mean, here's the thing: you can, if they go out here and they mess around and they win, no matter what happens with I'm going to say the second Saturday, it doesn't matter. He guaranteed next year.
Yeah, I agree. If they figure out a way to beat Tennessee, or I'm sorry, they beat Texas A&M, then he will be back for year 4. And I don't have a problem with that. Like, if you beat a top 5 team, then I think that justifies. And you're 4-6. You chalk up Kentucky to Jarrett Garantano. You chalk up the second half of Georgia to Jarrett Garantano. And Arkansas was Jeremy Pruitt's fault. And you say, okay, young coach learning on the job, right? So you're 4-6 in that case. I don't see that happening whatsoever. Beating Texas A&M, though.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying, but that if that happens, if A&M comes out flat, because they've had a few games off. Just here and there over the last month or so, nothing's ever off the table. Nobody gave LSU a chance last week.
True.
Nobody.
True.
And so anything can happen. We go out here and we play lights out. We throw the ball around or we run the ball really well, whatever our game plan is going to be, and we pull off an upset. Guaranteed next year. Actually, might have screwed around and guaranteed another 2 because of that, because that is going to guarantee A&M's out of the playoff. And what better way to put on your resume than say, hey, I knocked off a team that was probably going to have a legit chance to get in, depending on what happens Saturday, because we're playing before everybody else. So now their hope is done at that point. So it can happen, because I promise you, I didn't give LSU a chance last week. I get home, turn on the TV, and I was like, what just happened? I'm watching a 54-yard field goal or a 57-yard field goal.
Yeah, and you saw, and that's the thing, is that Florida had a lot to play for last week. And they botched it. A&M's got a lot to play for this week. Will they botch it after watching Florida botch it the week before? That's the one thing, is that you're right. I didn't give Florida a chance to lose. Now A&M was like, whoa, wake up. Hey, can't just go in here and thinking that that we got this thing. So here's what I want to get to, because Kevin says, even if they lose, I think Pruitt gets one more year. And Philip says, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I hope A&M beats our eyes shut. Now that's graphic, and
I know where he's going with that.
Yes.
But I mean, it's hard for me to ever say I would love for, in this case, my team being Tennessee, to just lose because I think it's better down the road. Well, at the end of the day, I'm not paid to make that decision either, right? So I can't go into a game and have that mindset personally. I'm not saying it's the wrong decision or wrong mindset. I'm just saying I couldn't do that. But everybody's entitled to their own opinion. That's the beauty of all this.
Right. So
that's what gets us going.
Right. So I have a question for everybody now. It's a fair or foul. And I talked to Crompton about this pre-show, and I think he really likes it.
It's interesting.
All right. So I want to know fair or foul. And we can, it's a 2-part question. You can answer fair or foul, and then we answer the actual, the aspect behind it. Fair or foul that the Jeremy Pruitt gets fired spread is Texas A&M minus 29.5. Meaning, if A&M beats Tennessee by 30 or more, Jeremy Pruitt deserves to get fired. If Tennessee does not lose by 30 or more, then maybe Jeremy Pruitt most likely gets a 4th year. So that is the actual spread in Vegas, guys, is A&M minus 14. So I added 2 touchdowns to that thing. So the Texas A&M Jeremy Pruitt fired spread minus 29.5. We'll first talk about fair or foul. But first, let me tell you guys about Ashbusters Chimney Service, your chimney experts at ashbusters.net and ashbustersknoxville.com. Sweeping inspections before the winter. If you want to get that fireplace going in the house, make sure it's all right. Make sure it's checked out with sweeps and inspections. Nobody does it better than our guys at Ashbusters Chimney Service. Also, masonry, custom masonry. If you're moving into a new house and you want your own type of fireplace, again, nobody does anything better when it comes to fireplaces and masonry than Ashbusters. They also clean out dryer vents. They do everything right there. Ashbusters.net. Keep your fire in its place with Ashbusters.net here. So I'll ask you, Crompton, fair or foul, the fired spread for Pruitt is minus 29.5.
I'm going to have to say fair. Because if that's the case, then all of our losses will be by double digits.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and the last one being just an absolute blowout.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's why I'm going to say fair, because first off, it's been well documented that we hadn't had, the string of double digit point losses that we've had, much less every loss in a season being that.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I think that one would be really hard to overcome. If it's 30 points, if it's less than that, I think it's, hey man, A&M was just a better team than us. They're fifth in the country. The normal, they played great today type deal. Right. But if they just come out and just manhandle, I think it's going to be tough. But I mean, there's a couple ways you can look at it. Are we saying, I know we're going 29.5, so technically 30 points to win by. If it's 60-30, then I'm still going to say, man, that's tough. But at least his argument is, hey, man, our offense finally scored 30 points.
Yeah, but you can't give up 60 because you're a defensive coach. That's my point. That's why you can't lose by 30 points.
I'm trying so hard.
I know.
Right
You
now.
cannot lose by 30 points.
I know.
You can argue if you lose by 24, you can say, well, okay, the game might have been a 13, 14-point game and A&M hung 10 on late to pull away, right? Like, you don't know how the game flow
works.
If it's a 30-point game, it's a blowout.
Before you answer, are we counting in like they're up by 3 touchdowns or, 3.5 touchdowns, so to speak, and then it's a late just screw it, it's the end of the game and it's just a late fumble recovery touchdown? Are we counting that as the 30?
So you're talking about.
What I mean? What if we're down 28 with like 3 seconds left? We're backed up. We get sacked in the end zone and it takes it to 30.
Yes.
You're counting it?
Vegas. Okay. Vegas count. Did Vegas count the Browns on Monday night fumbling for safety?
That's yes, what I was saying. That.
Yes, they did. So that's absolutely.
All right. Okay.
Yes.
I got you. All right. What do you go with?
Fair or foul? So I'm just going to read the comments. Michael Maddox says fair. Steve says fair. Fair there. Fair from Anthony. Fair from Alex says you can't get beat like that in a season where they have underperformed significantly and expect to keep your job. It's also the last game of the season, so you get the worst taste possible in your mouth out that too. Pruitt, Joshua says Pruitt needs to be gone, win or lose. Chris says fair. Another Steve says foul. Let's see. More comments. Frank says fair. The third quarter is going to be ugly. Dom says foul. He really shouldn't be coaching regardless of the outcome. I think beating A&M in a fluke upset would prolong the inevitable, but won't be good thing for the future. Oh, I agree. I agree with that, Dom. But
that's a pretty bold statement, but not a bad statement.
So Tom says, and Tom's a Texas A&M fan who's watched our show for a long time, also a Titans fan, I believe. Tom says fair. A&M hasn't really blown anyone out yet. And when you look at the Texas A&M season, they beat Vandy 17-12, which has to be the lowest scoring game in the SEC this year. They beat LSU 20-7, so that's
LSU's defense is not good though, and they only put up 20 points.
Right, and that was a month ago at this point. Then they beat Florida by 3, beat Mississippi State by 14, they beat Arkansas by 11. They blew out South Carolina 48-3. So, and I believe that was the game after Muschamp got canned. And then they look. You're right. They haven't beat many people.
Which is kind of even more interesting that if it happens, then it's almost a little more justified.
Yeah. Outside of that South Carolina game, the biggest point differential is A&M by 14 over Mississippi State. So that's a good point by Tom there. Maybe that's why I was so confused by the spread being 14 in Vegas. I was thinking it's got to be bigger than that.
Yeah, I mean, A&M, they're a really good team, but are they a number 5 team? I'm not so sure. Personally, I'm not taking anything away from what they've done, but just when you're thinking of a top 5 team, you're thinking of an Alabama, a last year LSU. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're thinking of a team that is just dominant. The old Southern Cal, stuff like that. So, I mean, don't get me wrong. They're really good. They've only lost one game, and it was to an Alabama.
And I also think
it's interesting.
And I think A&M got the most favorable schedule in the entire SEC because they beat Vandy, they beat Mississippi State, they beat Arkansas, they beat South Carolina, they beat Auburn. So you've got 3 fired coaches and 2 first-year coaches in those wins. Now they beat Florida, which was an amazing game to watch back early in the year in October. But A&M, absolutely one of the most favorable schedules in the entire SEC.
Yeah.
So
I agree.
So do you think, we'll end on this, do you think Tennessee covers my Pruitt fired spread of 29.5?
I think we do.
Okay.
I don't know if we cover Vegas's, but I think we cover the 29 because, I mean, if you think about it, man, 29.5, that's what makes Alabama so impressive this year. 29.5, that's over 4 touchdowns. Right. I mean, that's not an easy thing to do. There's a lot of teams that don't even score that amount in a game, much less covering that. So if this was an Alabama or last year LSU, I would say, hey, man, I don't know if we cover that. But with it being A&M that has not statistically just blown it out of the water and is, with the spreads, I think we cover that. I just don't know if we cover Vegas.
Yeah, I'm with you. So we got no answers. So there's a lot of people that are thinking it's going to be a 30-point game right there. Colton says yes, they will cover the 29.5. Philip says A&M's going to be looking for style points after Florida got beat. And that
is the thing. If they start winning, their starters are going to stay in. Or I would assume, because they've got to have the eye test, because this is the last week. They have to have that eye test because what is it? Sunday, everything's coming out.
Yep, Sunday.
So this is their last chance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. 11 Central Time, noon for you Eastern folks.
Yeah.
Parker says if you average all Pruitt's losses as a coach, lose by an average of 21 points, and that's the other thing.
Stop making me second guess myself. Okay, come on.
Oh man. All right. Well, I do think Tennessee covers my 29.5 fired spread. I think it's a 3 touchdown game. I think it's probably right in the middle of Vegas's 14 and my 29.5. So 3 touchdown game. Frank says the statement game for A&M. Saturday. Yeah. So I don't know why I'm saying tomorrow, but anyway, guys, look, great Vols preview show again today. Love the participation. Love you guys watching here on a Thursday afternoon. Jonathan Crompton and I will be live for the Big Orange halftime show and the Big Orange post-game show. Again, brought to you by BioPure Music City. Go check them out. Go check out their new hand sanitizer. And protectant. BioPureService.com is where to go. Just came out a week ago. Also, Ashbusters Chimney Service, ashbusters.net, your chimney sweeping expert. So check them out as well. So thanks again for watching. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Thursday. Zach Bingham and I will see you guys tomorrow morning on A to Z Sports. Make sure your live notifications are on wherever you follow us. Crompton, I'll talk to you later, man. Thanks.
See ya. Y'all have a